So today's video is a quick PSA. This has been brought to my attention on Twitter. I've seen this posted by several different people, and I want to bring attention to the fact that you really don't want to be taking this, aerosolizing it, and then breathing it in. What am I referring to? There's an instructional video that's been floating around. There are other videos, but there's a big one right now. It's getting a bit of traction. And the instructional video covers how to easily remove layer lines and smooth, FDM prints by essentially spraying on resin using an airbrush. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, whenever you print something with FDM, you're going to get layer lines, and there are ways to get rid of the layer lines in the print, because usually you don't want to see those layer lines, especially something smooth like an Iron Man mask faceplate. So you can use fillers, you can use putties, you can sand it. Another way is you could either paint on, brush on, or dip it in uncured resin, let it thin out, and then cure it, and that gives you a smooth finish. This instructional video, and I'm not going to link to the video and I'm not going to show clips from it. I don't believe it needs any more attention than it's already gotten. The instructions go over how to use an airbrush to spray on resin. And let's be honest, the final result is good. It makes a nice smooth print. However, again, this is uncured UV resin. For anyone who's ever worked with UV resin before, you wear gloves with this. This gives off fumes that a lot of people find nauseous. People have fume hoods over their resin printers. They keep them in completely separate rooms. Uncured resin, if it gets on your skin, can cause reactions, can cause allergic reactions. Over time, these 1 or 2 drops at first might not seem like much, but apparently over time your body will lose its resistance to what causes the reactions, and you can break out in rashes and whatnot. This stuff is really not good for you. Once it's cured, it's relatively safe. You can handle cured prints with your bare hands, but in its uncured form, UV resin is not safe. And that's the problem with this video. The video goes over how to essentially aerosolize this. Now, the creator of the video does state in the video, you should be wearing gloves, you should wear eye pro, a mask of some sort. I believe he does say a full face mask. And you should be in a well-ventilated room. But let's be honest, that's really not enough. Gloves, okay? Yes, you're wearing gloves, okay? You're spraying something. The problem is, if I'm spraying it, if anyone's ever spray painted, it gets everywhere, especially if you've spray painted in an enclosed room. It's just going to float around for a bit and then settle. So yes, my hands will be protected. My whole arm is exposed. He says wear safety glasses. The problem is we're not worried about splashback. We now have little particles of uncured resin floating throughout the room. You really need something that actually fully covers your face. Now, when it comes to masks, he says wear a filtered face mask. But let's be honest here. If you look at the comments in the video, I see a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to go buy a $10 Harbor Freight airbrush and do this myself. We're going to be lucky if people are wearing the good old-fashioned chin diaper that we all have because of COVID. You really need to be wearing a complete full face sealed organic filter mask. You need something kind of like this to properly protect your eyes and your airway. You don't want to be breathing in uncured resin. This isn't like the fumes from being in a room with a resin printer while it's running. This is literally this stuff floating in the air and now getting into your lungs. And for being in the room, he says use ventilation. What is proper ventilation? I'm assuming what most people would think of is like you're painting a room. You're going to have a little fan going and you're going to have the window open. That is not good enough. You have floating particles of uncured resin. So if I'm sitting here airbrushing and I have a fan over there and I've got my window open and it's, the fan's blowing across like here, all those particles of uncured resin are just going to settle all over my desk here, all over my keyboard. If I'm, I'm going to get on something, I'm working, I'm leaning over, I've now got uncured resin on my arms the next day, because I'm assuming most people aren't going to go through and completely clean and decontaminate an entire room after doing this. So I watched the video and he's just sitting in front of his desk or his workbench, and he's just spraying parts, and I can barely hear a fan in the background. I don't know if that's the air compressor, but that whole room is now being filled with uncured resin that's now aerosolized. It's now floating around the room. Again, we wear gloves when we handle this stuff because we don't want it in our skin. You do not want it in your lungs. People who wear contact lenses, if anyone who wears contact lenses, you know not to use super glue while you're wearing contact lenses. The fumes from super glue can cause the contact lenses to melt and glue to your eyeballs. I'm sure you don't want to get resin in your contact lenses and then go outside on a bright sunny day. I'm sure that's probably going to be a bad reaction. If you want to do this properly, you need something like an enclosed negative pressure chamber with proper HEPA or organic filter that is rated to capture the particles from this. Having your window open and a fan in the room isn't enough. Now, if you do this once, you're probably going to be fine, okay? If you do this twice, you might be fine. I don't know where the limit is. But again, it's uncured resin, and you've now aerosolized it and spread it throughout your room. So now I can't stop you from doing this. I don't resin print a lot. It's one of my more niche hobbies in 3D printing. I just got my second resin printer. I bought 5 jugs of this stuff in my lifetime. But just going off of the comments on Twitter from those that do a lot of resin printing, they're all freaking out over this. This is definitely not something you should be doing. This is definitely not something you should run down to the Harbor Freight, buy a $10 airbrushing kit, throw on some old safety glasses and a chin diaper, and think you're safe to do this in your hobby room because you have the window open. Please don't do this. Go buy some spray paint filler, go get some putty. There's plenty of instructions on how to smooth out prints safely that, you know, don't involve huffing raw, uncured resin. So, yeah, be safe out there. And again, I just got my second resin 3D printer, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the smash button on the way out.